Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Black Heart, signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I want to thank those who have hit the subscribe button, and I mean that from the bottom of my black heart, and the like button. I really want to thank those that hit the share button. You have helped others to benefit and treated the message as it should be treated. Believe it or not, I count myself as a pro-black. It's hard to tell that because I'm clearly on the side of many red-pilled men when it comes to gender issues in the black community. I am not only pro-black, to a certain extent, I'm anti-white and proud of it. Now, it doesn't mean that I want every white individual to suffer. Even though I can take people as individuals, I am against their society. Specifically meaning the Western European society. Eastern Europeans have not caused trouble for other people. They're not in my crosshairs, so to speak. As a matter of fact, a Bosnian automatically is more dear to me than an Indian. The Bosnian only has to not do something against black folks or other people of melanin or higher melanin counts, and we're not at odds with each other. And they usually don't. They tend to stick to themselves, but they don't show white supremacist leanings that I've seen. But if you come from India, I need to see evidence that you will actually side with black people against white supremacy. Until then, I don't expect much of you. Even if we can be nice to each other, my actual trust is going to depend on that. If you worship gods that are blue and white, and the only black deity in your pantheon is the goddess of destruction, and I automatically view you as a white supremacist. Not to mention that a Muslim and a Hindu naturally don't get along anyway. But that's another recording for another time. But believe it or not, I count myself as a pro-black in the sense that I do want black folks to not only survive, but thrive. And I want us to be above everybody else when it comes to worldly power. I would be happy if we were just in the middle where we could not oppress anyone, but could not be oppressed. I would be happy with that. The problem is I don't know how long that kind of balance would last. The best position for us is a position in which we can oppress other people and we do not oppress them, but we don't let them dominate either. That's the best position, morally speaking, for this life and for the next. Now, there are some pro-black men in the B1 network. What I wanted to point out to many of us on our side, on the red pill side, is that many of these black men in the B1 network or in that crowd actually don't mean any harm. They are coming from a position that we have been traumatized and black women have been traumatized. And therefore, we should not join the rest of the world in putting our DNA and our phenotype and our people last, and our languages and cultures last. And I agree with them in that regard. We should not put ourselves last. Where we disagree, where they need correction and we don't, is when we say to them, we black men are not the ones putting ourselves last. Boom Shika and Bonquisha, Bonquiqui, and Sapphire are putting us last. It is clear as day that what they want is mainly one thing. It's one combination. They either want light-skinned daughters or they want jet black sons, if they actually want to have grandchildren. Now, if they don't want to have black children at all, then that's even furthering the brainwashing. The point I'm getting at is that when the older male children grow and the less dependent they become on their mothers' thinking, notice, I don't say the more they drift away from their mothers, but the less dependent they are on the thinking of their mothers, the less colorism they'll have. I've seen this time and time again. Men get imprinted differently. Women get stuck on what other women like unless they're in a society that forces them not to, doesn't give them that opportunity, i.e. many non-Western societies. Men get imprinted by what likes them. And I actually kind of understand why it is that there are some men who begin to like tricking and prefer it. I don't, but I understand why there are those who do. That's what imprints on them. They start off their romantic and sexual lives tricking. They pay someone. And then they begin to adjust to the transactional nature of relationships. Many of them have said, I don't pay them for sex, but I do pay them to not bother me afterwards. And I came to understand that a while ago when I saw that there were certain men who thought that when they got with attractive women, these relationships are going to end either never or peacefully, failing to understand that no, that's not the way that works. Failing to understand that actually, because she is a 7, she demands that you be a 10 financially. And she's going to give you pure D hell. But because you are a man, you're going to fall short somewhere, and she's going to have that as an excuse to cheat on you. And that you don't have better than that waiting on you in the Western world. It's not there. It's not waiting for you. A scenario in which she's attractive, even if she's only attractive to you. She knows she's attractive to you, so she takes on the psychology of the 8, 9, and 10. Actually, the psychology of the 10 when she's around you. And so she still treats you that same way, even if other men don't treat her like that. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to this. Even though I am pro-black, I will tell, and even though I will tell us from the red pill side where a genuinely pro-black man is coming from, and this is usually when they're new to be one, and when they're inexperienced with the games that, or I should say, when they're unaware of the games that women play. These men actually do tend to mean it, that they're pro-black. But I also want it to be pointed out to them, to those of you that are pro-black like me, but you want to be one side. You got to keep in mind, if you did not know this already, they're playing games that make them no better than other women. They're playing other games that actually make them worse than other women. That's the truth of the matter with regards to the Western woman, period, white or black. The black Western woman has not held up her end of the bargain. She has not been a better deal than the white woman. And that white woman is dangerous, as you've seen. And white women will get you killed. I agree with you on that. I agree with Omar Johnson on that. Not only will your white friends turn on you in the interest of their people, your white wives will turn on you. Your white girlfriends will turn on you. Even after having your black babies, they will turn on you in the interest of their people. I get that. I understand to a certain extent that I can somewhat understand why Kobe's parents would have been ticked with him that he married someone that ain't black and then spent money to get them out of debt that he would not spend to get his family out of debt. I understand that to a certain extent. If they had experiences with Latinos, specifically Mexicans, and racist attitudes towards black folks, I'm sure I would tell the same thing to either of my kids they bring home a Mexican. Is this a black Mexican? If not, then why the hell did you bring them here? Because you know that their people got issues with us. We're not allies. We tried the alliance. It didn't work. And even now, some of those that used to be a part of that black-brown alliance back in the 70s have gone ahead and taken up the stance of the elders and called us mayates. I would tell my kids probably the same thing, but it's not because they're not black. It is because of their anti-black stance. And that's assuming that that's what the problem was between Kobe and his parents. That's what the issue really was. Now, as a pro-black man, I don't see a reason that we should join the rest of the world, and they do put our phenotype last. Even when they're not violent and they don't want us extinct, they put our phenotype last, just the phenotype. Why would you want to be with some black? Why would you, if you're a black man and you make a lot of money, why would you still marry a black woman? What's wrong with you? Face it, they're not beautiful, that kind of thing. And I mean, they, face it like this is a fact. And you will see this with the Pakistanis and the Northern Indians and the Arabs and the Persians. The ones that claim to be Muslim actually lead in this more so than those who don't claim to be and are not Muslim. You will, a Buddhist man worshiping statues that he makes with his own hand will actually be more understanding of you marrying a black woman when you got a ton of money than with a Muslim who will not worship a statue, who will not worship anything other than who created him, but yet and still subconsciously worships whiteness and white supremacy, and without realizing it. That's a doggone shame, but that's what happens. And see, I get why the pro-black man will turn on everybody else, so to speak. I understand that to a certain extent. He hasn't traveled enough, or he traveled and he saw how they treated him because he was black. I understand that to a certain extent. When you come across that, you start to believe these people don't exist. Just yesterday, I was in a grocery store and I had a racist thought about Bedouins, if you want to call it racism. I don't give a rat's behind what race the Bedouin comes from, but they're hardly ever completely black enough to where they know they're black. That's hardly ever the case. But I will say about them is that their culture is backwards. You can put me on record for saying this. I'm in one of their countries and I'm telling you, they are backwards. Now, are they vicious and violent and dangerous? No, that's not the case. That's not the problem. But are they backwards? Absolutely. They can't wait in line. I was waiting to weigh my vegetables before getting ready to purchase them. And this old ass Bedouin walked up to the counter around the line, put his vegetables up, and the employee weighed his stuff and then went back to the line, went to me. And I decided, you know what, I'm about to insult this man and her and then tell them I don't buy vegetables from racist, backwards Bedouins who don't deserve to rule themselves. And my wife came up. I decided not to do this because I didn't want her to get in trouble. But I'm never going to forgive, just for that one thing. They've been doing this since I've been here, and I'm never going to forgive them for it. They can't wait in line. If they think that they are that special because they're Bedouins or because someone else is from somewhere, someone else is from somewhere else, then they don't deserve to rule themselves. And I don't care if Israel walks in and gives them orders. As long as I don't have to obey them, I don't care what Israel does to them until they change who the F they are. And it is the same thing with the Muslims in India. I do not care what you're going through right now. I mean, I don't like the fact that you're going through it, but I'm not willing to publicly sympathize or outwardly sympathize with you in my personal life under my real name for a specific reason. You don't give a rat's behind what's happening to Muslims in the Central African Republic. So I get why the pro-black looks at everybody else and says, F them all, screw all of them, ain't none of them worth a dime. That's the information they have. When they haven't traveled, they don't realize how much people actually don't hate us. They don't realize the boundary between not wanting to look like us and actually hating us. That part does not sink in with them. They don't know about that. You got to travel to see that fine line sometimes. The funny thing is they actually would be able to recognize that in a white supremacist in the U.S. who may at least be cordial, but say, look, you're over there, we over here. Now we can meet and have dinner and discuss the boundary between us. They would actually respect that more in a U.S. Klansman than they would in another person of color that's not black or white from abroad. So I get the pro-black orientation when you're new. Now let me address those of you that are pro-black. If you are pro-black, you have to care about the results and the outcome. If you are pro-black, you have every right to demand that your women be equally pro-black. If being pro-black means that you tolerate certain shortcomings and flaws in the women, then being pro-black means they tolerate the same or the same number of shortcomings and flaws in you. They're not doing that. Right now, the black community is driving away some of its best, and this effort is largely led by the women and the men who follow them. The men who follow these women will commit acts of violence against such guys. The women themselves will sometimes merely neglect such guys, but they won't tolerate the same neglect, or they will actually deride and denigrate such guys publicly, which they would not tolerate in return, and tell some of these men that think like them, how could you even stand to be around him? Why don't you just go ahead and take his lunch money? This is what we're dealing with. And you, as pro-black men, are not going back to the women or even to the little girls, let alone the grown women, and saying, well, what the hell are you doing so that the best and brightest men have a reason to stay? And that does include bending over the couch and not being big as a whale when you do it. It does include that. It does include smelling nice when you bend over that couch. Now, that's not all it includes, but I'm going to always bring it back to that because that's always what they try to bring it away from. Why it always got to be about the sex? Because when they're dealing with the worst, we already know what's happening. They're dealing with the worst and they make it about the sex and nothing but the sex. And they don't give him a hell of a rough time afterwards, or at least they try not to. They may not be able to, but at least they'll make some effort to not give him a hell of a headache simply because they had sex and it was good to them. Then when it's time for them, if it's ever time for them to start dealing with the best of us, then it changes. Now it's time for them to start dealing with the men that are better. Okay? They only do so when they are older, with kids, don't smell as good. They only do so when they're declining from what they used to be and what they used to look like and what troubles they used to not bring to the table. It's always that formula. Now, where each woman is different. But one thing I can guarantee you, as a pro-black man who wanted to see more black couples and black love, and who still would like to see it, one thing I can guarantee you is that when you take that man that does not fit negative stereotypes and you take the women that are interested in him right now when he's maybe in his 30s and he's doing well, you take those women and compare them at the age at which they're interested in that man and versus what she brought to the table when she was not interested in him. One thing that is always true in our community is that, especially if she's nice to look at, she had to go through a hoe phase or a bad boy hoe phase. Either one's a hoe phase. She had to go through it. You take the ones of them that didn't have to go through it, and they're American, and they're universally unattractive to look at, by any man's standards and even by their own. You can argue, well, what do you define attractive and unattractive? Let her define it, and it's the same thing. Put that on her, and it's still going to be the exact same outcome. If she is attractive to herself, if she likes what she sees in the mirror, she goes for the bad dude because everybody else is going after him. And I'm just going to call it what it is. As a pro-black man, you are not required, and I am not required to settle. And if you stay in the West and you deal with the black Western woman, you're going to have to settle. And if you were the bad dude she wanted when she was young and you get older, it's the same thing. You still gonna have to settle. At the end of the day, it boils down to this. She will not settle down until you have to settle. That's where she differs from the black women that are not in the West. And this is why I say to you, you need to jump on board. You actually will be better off. Your strategy will be better off if you came on board, but you attempted to redirect red pill men into the arms of non-Western and traditional black women from differing countries. And you're cut out for that because you're already pro-black. You can travel throughout the continent if you can afford to. You can travel throughout the continent, meet different black folks from different cultures, because it's not all one culture, and find out which areas are the best. I mean, a survey came out, and it found that Nigerian women were the most promiscuous on the continent. Now, let me tell you something else. I know that that's not the northern Nigerian woman, but you got to get to know Nigerians to find this out. Ain't no way that this includes the northern Nigerian woman, or even the ones from the middle of the country. It is a southern Nigerian thing. And the promiscuity of the worst of them is what's pulling that average to where the average becomes higher than other nationalities. That's real. That's the truth of the matter. But you're in a position to find out and learn these things and come back and tell us which nations got the best ones, the same way that everybody else has been able to do for Southeast Asia, for parts of the Americas. And even when things begin to change, like how in the Dominican Republic right now, they say things are changing and the women aren't what they used to be. That's what they point out. They'll say, you go to the DR and it ain't the same no more. They're at the airport waiting. Can you buy me a phone? What, are you kidding me? That's what it's up. That's what it's about. Can I buy you a phone? And I still got my bags in my hand. Just got my passport stamped and just came through baggage claim. Can I buy you a phone? And probably can't even say it correctly, because you know that Spanish is ghetto as hell. Yeah, I said it. In the DR, your Spanish sucks. Nobody can understand you but you, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans. And that says a lot. But I'm not saying this out of hatred for them. That's another topic for another day. But at the end, but you see, you're in a position to be able to do these things specifically because you're pro-black. And when you go into Africa, you're in the best position to meet others that are pro-black, because they're Pan-Africanists in Africa. And when they meet someone like you, they'll introduce you to the rest. You're sitting up here on these panels and live streams stateside, screaming and shouting at those of us that want to bounce because she's become a goddamn effing reptile, as MOT said it. You want to sit up and make all kinds of excuses and insults. And some of you niggas, I ain't gonna say no names, but some of you niggas sound like you're flipping a table over when you do it. You sound like you're thumping your chest. Okay, so you think that the gorilla stereotype's supposed to apply to you, so you act it out. That's where we are now. And yet you can't travel. And others of you have some experience traveling, but not in Africa. I don't have enough of that myself. But you act like because you traveled somewhere that you've been to the motherland, even though where you went was somewhere else. And then you want to sit up here and tell us that we weak for leaving. Now I'm saying I did that shit. Y'all niggas is weak for leaving. It's the same thing everywhere. No. It ain't the same thing everywhere. It will be if we're not careful. The nature may be the same, but the culture is not the same thing everywhere. There is a difference. And if you niggas would take a look and understand this, if you would actually just travel and observe, you would find this out. You would be coming back reporting something different, and you'd be in a position to come to our side, but to tell us, look, on one side, yeah, us first. Okay, on the other side, Boom Shika ain't where it's at. She ain't having it. But Zuleika back home, now she's where it's at. And this is the part of back home you want to go to. You'd be in a position to tell us where we can find them. You see, when some guys on my side say, well, the black woman's just not as beautiful, you have every right to step up and say, man, what the F is wrong with you? This many billions of black people all over the world. See, Africa's got right under 1 billion, I think. But if you take in the Americas and Melanesia and Australia with it, now I'm sure we top 1 billion. More than 1 billion of us. How the hell can all of us not be beautiful? Dumbass, that does sound like some self-hating stuff. That really does. That's the truth of the matter. But then when you would be in a position as well to learn something, and that is that in the West, the way she acts is also part of the reason why a brother from the West might look at all black women and not be able to bond with her romantically. You see, I get why you're pro-black. Others have been crapping on us. The very least is about our looks. It's subconscious racism, and they all have it. I get that. I understand that. But the thing is, you're still allowing the others that are pro-black and that have been in it longer than you have and know better to tell us to keep it in our pants until we get to deal with that Western reptile, as MOT calls them, that finally decides to say, okay, you know what? It's your turn, thinking black man. It's your turn, productive black man. It's your turn, well-meaning, well-intentioned black man. Okay, now I got these babies, and since you pro-black, you need to treat these black babies like they're your own, because it takes a village. She wasn't talking that mess when her boyfriend had other babies and other baby mamas. She wasn't talking that it takes a village stuff then at that point. She didn't say that. Because then that would have meant it was her job to raise somebody else's babies. No. Now she got the babies, it's your job. And you letting them tell you to, you're letting them tell you to come and tell us this type of thing is foolish. You want to do, if you really want to do what's right for black folk, and you really want black folk to survive and thrive without losing the black phenotype, you would do the traveling as much as you possibly can. You would talk to those who have traveled, and you would be telling us what I'm telling us. You would be saying, try the black woman from other places. See which ones of them like you the most when they have options. And that's where you go. Some brothers, they got that hustling spirit. And Nigeria might be the spot for them. Northern Nigeria. I ain't gonna tell you the South under no circumstances. Some of them, you know what, they got that Pan-African spirit. Ghana might be the best for them. Or South Africa. Others of them might be quite good with languages. And that might be where East Africa comes into play, because you got Swahili and you got other languages that are related to it, or from which Swahili developed as a combination language. It depends, but you will be telling brothers, man, look to other black women. Some brothers are really good with Romance languages, and that's where Brazil comes into play. Some brothers are into the history of slave rebellion. They could travel the Americas and they would meet Pan-Africanists in the Americas, in Colombia and in Brazil. And this is what's happening a lot of times. But if you are pro-black, you're genuinely pro-black, your authenticity and your intentions going to come through in your message. But you're going to be telling us to deal with the worst that the black world has to offer. And you're going to turn people against what you want, not for what you want. By simply expanding the national boundaries of what you're looking for or what you're promoting, you would actually have a stronger message. And there's one more thing I want to say to some of these one phenotype niggas. The ones that want to say that if there's a question mark, you can't be black. If you want to say this about me, I'll accept it on the condition that you fuck the shuck up when you're dealing with other black folks. Because the struggle has always been populated by black folk from various countries and of various complexions. Marcus Garvey was not American. He was a British subject from Jamaica, but he was an African and a Pan-African. W.E.B. Du Bois was actually race mixed, and he became a Pan-African and died as such in the continent of Africa, having admitted that he was wrong and Garvey was right. This is what wound up happening. Robert Smalls was somewhere in the middle as far as complexion goes, according to the photographs. This man stole a boat, went out to the Union, helped them to take part of the South, ran for Congress, and won. Now, you want to talk about gangster? That's some gangster stuff. Escaped slavery, stole a boat, helped the Union against the Confederacy, all right? Ran for Congress, and then won. Don't talk nothing about no gangster stuff. This man did it. And how did he do it? He committed treason against the paradigm under which he was raised. The white supremacist slaveholding South. He committed treason against that. How many of you niggas are willing to commit treason against America today? You see? None of us are. I'm not going to sit up and say that I am. I was willing to leave it. But I'm not going to brag and say I was willing to commit treason against it. So I'm simply saying that none of us are. So we can't sit up and talk about gangster business in comparison to him. He was in the middle of the road, middle of the spectrum. There were plenty of people of all phenotypes. But right now, at this point, it seems like some of us want to turn around and take some of us out, or take some of them out. So we want to remove Malcolm X. We want to remove Huey P. Newton. We want to say that they thought they were black, but they weren't. Is that what we want to say? Is that what we want to teach our kids? Do we seriously want to go there? That's the first question to ask. In all honesty, is that where we want to go? Secondly, you one phenotype Negroes, those of you who say that there's only one look for the black race, you need to travel. to the motherland. On the real, you need to travel. Because what you will find is that we have had diversity in shade and in phenotype from the very beginning, with or without admixture. Now, unfortunately, a lot of Negroes in Africa will look at certain things and say, oh, they got white blood in them. Like the Fulani are reputed to have had white blood in them. Fulani have not married anybody that ain't black for thousands of years. Some of them will say, well, they came from the Middle East. At the time that they would have come, nobody would have known the difference between the Middle East and Africa. They would have only known that there was a Red Sea. And that was it. So you mean across the Red Sea? What you mean the Middle East? Your ancestors didn't call it the Middle East at the time they would have left there. The Fulani have appeared the way that they've appeared as long as anybody can remember. You would go into Central Africa in the rainforest and you would see among the Twa, the Pygmy, different complexions. You would not find them as pale as what you see in the Americas, and you would not find them as black as what you see in Senegal and Gambia, blurple. You wouldn't see that either, but you see everything in between. You go into Southern Africa, they had no white admixture and they were yellow. The Igbo were referred to as being yellow back during the slave trade, before the slave trade. Now, it was not due to mixing that they were referred to as such. The Igbo actually have generally had the same appearance as African Americans have today. Or should I say the same appearances. And no, raping them was not the reason, because the Igbo were known to be suicidal under duress. So if you kidnapped them and they could commit suicide, they would do it. And if you raped them and they could commit suicide, they would commit suicide. Because their belief in the afterlife was different from those that surrounded them. So no, you can't chalk that up to admixture. You can sit up and you can say that we can no longer discriminate against the jet black, wide nose, big lip, 4C hair Africans. You can say that, and that is true. People in Africa do have some of that colonization mindset and the colorism and the featureism that goes with it. Yeah, you are going to see that on the motherland. That's true. So you can say that we need to stop the discrimination and quit making fun of that. Yeah, that's true. We need to stop that. But by the same token, you cannot sit up here and say that that is the only one that's black. Because believe you me, when you get to that area where the question mark is over you, everybody's going to tell you whatever you don't say about yourself. I kid you not. I'm not playing. Because I'm living under that question mark appearance. Been living with it since I was a kid, all my life. It doesn't matter what you say, people are going to argue with you. So if I were to not identify myself as black around here, then what would wind up happening is that somebody would find out that I am, and then they would say, oh yeah, Blackheart's over here passing as something. He was trying to pretend like he's not black. He's black. That's what they would do. But because I identify myself as black, these Arabs want to tell me, no, doctor, you're white. That's what happened. It does, just like African Americans. Whatever you say about yourself is going to be what they don't say about you. They're going to say it's a lie. No, you ain't no nigga. Okay, all right. So I'm not. In that case, shine my shoes. Shit, I ain't shine no nigga shoes. Who you talking to like that, nigga? It doesn't matter what you say. Niggas are going to argue with you. So you're not going to be able to promote that whole one phenotype thing. Not because we're self-hating and we just want to drag everybody in with us. That's not necessarily the reason why, but because you actually are going to inadvertently kick people out. And keep this in mind, and I'm done. When you look at these different phenotypes, including the ones that have a question mark over them, or the ones over which you want to place the question mark, even though they would not have been there, i.e. like Malcolm X, not a single one of them in the struggle was ever fighting for only their phenotype or fighting to separate from the rest of us. They never did that. Malcolm didn't. Rosa Parks didn't. Huey P. Newton didn't. Others whose names I've forgotten. W.B. Du Bois, he came up with the talented 10th, but he was still not trying to separate the race based on shade as far as I know. However, when he died, he certainly was not trying to do that. So when you look at the ones of them who are quite pale and maybe even had non-4C hair or non-C hair at all, if you look at even at them, there is no case where you can find them struggling for only their phenotype and nobody else in the race. It was always for the race. And some people have even made jokes about that. Why the red niggas always got to be the most militant? Well, probably like I said before, they get to hear the stuff that white folks say, because when the white folks try to divide us, they usually use people with this phenotype to divide the rest of us. And we're the ones that are sick of it. Because when we're around them, we know what they're like in the mornings before they leave the house. We know about their bad habits. We see them going to the bathroom and not washing their hands when they leave. We see stuff like that. We might have been invited to stay open at the house when we were little and, spend the night. And they got up and they didn't brush their teeth before 11 o'clock. We saw how they actually were. In many cases, they dropped their guard around us. Maybe that's the reason why. But you don't see them fighting to become a separate category from us. You're confusing light-skinned Negroes with Gandhi. That's what's going on. And I think y'all need to keep in mind, you pro-black, get that Gandhi stuff out your mind about us. We ain't Gandhi. We ain't Hindus, and we ain't part of that caste system. We know what we are almost all the time. And if you don't believe it, you can ask some of the paler ladies amongst us what they got against light-skinned men. And they'll spout out all the same stereotypes. Even if it's her brother or her father, they'll spit out the same stereotypes. They soft, they pussy, and they dick is little. I'll kid you not, I saw it with my own eyes. So that being said, I think I said enough. Those of you that are pro-black genuinely, I want you to get credit for your sincerity. Believe you me, I do. I also want you to understand that you're being used by the ones that have been in this longer and who know that no other woman in the world functions with the same hypocrisy as Boomshika and Bonquisha and Sapphire. I want you to know that some of your elders are aware of this and is still telling you this type of thing, mainly so that, you know what? At the end of the day, they're telling you this because they know that what they're really upholding is nigger culture, but somebody's got to pay the bill for that. And they don't want thinking black men to leave because we're the only ones who can afford to pay the bill for that. And I don't just mean the monetary bill, but in terms of everything. They understand that. Nigger culture cannot survive in a wilderness, and it cannot survive unsupported by non-niggers. So they need some non-niggers to stick around and support the nigger culture. And we done with that. Done with it. So you really want to say the race? Step in with us and try to redirect more of us into the arms of other black women. And that's going to include places you didn't know that there were black people, like in Southeast Asia, like in Melanesia, like in remote parts of Australia where the original Australians still live. And in order to do that, you're going to have to get rid of this phenotype obsession, because in Australia, you got black folks that you would say are not black, and they would stomp you if you said it. They kick your stomach and make you shit on yourself for saying something like that to them. Because the reason that it may not show as much, in that case, usually it is rape. It wasn't because the black Australian woman was just laying down with Massa. It's because he was raping her. And they do have a solid memory of that. And they're not going to take too kindly to you traveling all the way over there, trying to unite them, and then turning to one of them and saying, oh, not you, because you ain't black. All of them will gang up on you if you do something like that. But if you can put that junk aside and you can start to promote the international black woman, you actually are in a better position to have more of an effect on people on my side of this divide. Give it a shot. Jump on in. The water's fine. And remember, Get Out is more than just a good movie. It is a geographical solution. Blackheart, thanking you for listening. Signing black out. Assalamu alaikum in black. Male power just because they don't like it.